Welcome to episode 2. In our last episode, we broke down how the modern Indian consumer is squeezed between an artificial real estate bubbles and outdated inflation metrics and a brutal tax to facility ratio. But there is a louder narrative running across our media lines. The grand promises of Swadeshi make Indian and turning our nation into a global manufacturing superpower. Today, we step inside the walls of an actual working domestic manufacturing plant, not the corporate tech parks, but the concrete floor where a raw material are turned into a finished goods. We will look at why local producers are fighting a losing battles against a global competition, why our employment data is an absolute illusion, and the radical macroeconomic blueprint required to fix the machine. If you want to manufacture a product locally that can defeat a global competitor on a price and quality, your fundamental inputs cost must be cheap, streamlined, and efficient. The two primary lungs of a heavy manufacturing plant are energy and logistic. Electricity to run the machinery, and petroleum or a diesel to transport the raw materials and finished goods. Now, let's look at the hidden structural trap built into the Indian tax system. The government proudly launched a GST as a one nation, one tax system designed to eliminate a cascading effect of double taxation through a mechanism called input tax credit. Under normal GST, if you buy a raw material, you deduct the tax paid on that material from your final tax liability. But the state made a calculated revenue saving decision. They intentionally kept electricity, petroleum, petrol, and diesel completely outside the regular GST umbrella. Think about what does this to a factory owner. Your plant consumes a massive amount of electricity and commercial fuel. The state government levy a heavy local electricity duties and high unregulated value added tax on a diesel. Because this energy input sit outside the GST system, you receive absolutely a zero input tax credit on them. The tax you pay on your power and fuel become a stranded tax. It cannot be offset, it cannot be deducted. It directly attaches itself to your cost of production, artificially inflating the price of your final manufactured item. On the top of this, you pay heavy domestic corporate income tax return. If you survive, it is only because you operate in a highly specialized, less competitive local niche. But the moment you attempt to export your goods globally, you crash into a wall. You are competing against a foreign factories in a nation like China and Vietnam, where government provides a deep energy subsidies, cheap state-backed electricity, and complete tax offsets. Your product is dead on arrival in the international market, priced out not because your labor isn't inefficient, but because your state tax design is predatory on a production. Why don't we just extract our own natural resources to bring down this energy cost? Because our research development and infrastructure gestation timelines are agonizing, systematically very slow. Look at the hard fact. When natural gas resources are identified in complex deep water terrain like Andaman Basin, it takes up to 12 long years of bureaucratic red tape, environmental clearance, and legal disputes over a tribal or ecological preservation and shifting a policy guideline just to begin actual commercial extraction. For over a decade. That energy sits trapped under the ocean floor while our local factories continue to bleed capital importing expensive foreign liquefied natural gas. Instead of fixing this deep industrial rot, the state has fallen into a dangerous comfort zone, celebrating a market provider or a service provider module instead of true manufacturing model. Look at state infrastructure giants like a BSNL. Instead of pioneering a foundational domestic hardware or a telecommunication manufacturing, they are often relegated to acting as a mere service provider or a network provider for a foreign technology giant to deploy their Wi-Fi and digital services across Indian landscape. We are opening our massive consumer market of 1.4 billion people to foreign companies acting as the delivery boys and customer service agent while letting them take the high margin manufacturing profit back to their shores. To prevent a public panic and mask this deep structural failure, the state is forced into a massive multi trillion rupee balancing act. Let's look at the unbiased reality of union budget. The government total revenue received over around a 36.5 lakhs crore rupees, but their total planned expenditure it climbs past 53.5 lakhs crore rupees. This leaves a staggering fiscal deficit nearly a 16.9 lakh crore rupees. How does the government bridge this jaw-dropping gap? By borrowing a massive amount of market capital every single year, pushing a national debt higher. If our economy is truly booming at the fastest rate globally, we must ask the logical, data backed question: why does the state have to run the world's largest public distribution system, providing completely free fruit grain to over 800 million citizens just to ensure a basic survival? This is definitive proof of a brutal K-shaped economy divide. The top tier of the economy is growing immensely wealthy, pumping a capital into a luxury assets and stock market. Meanwhile, the bottom 50% of the population is facing stagnant wages and intense food inflation. The fastest growing tag is a mathematically aggregate that hides a highly vulnerable population underneath. To fix this collapsing trade and export a balance, the government has launched a massive push under a narrative of Nari Shakti, woman empowerment, from a social perspective that is necessary, but from a raw economic perspective, it is a move of absolute fiscal urgency. The state desperately needs to bring the female labor force participation in a rate which has a historical set at a low 25 to a 30% into a formal ecosystem to harvest cheap, intensive human resource labor. They need to mass produce a goods for a export to balance the failing national trade ladder. Yet, they mask a true unemployment data. The official statistical count temporary, unstable gig work, food delivery runs, and the short term casual contract work as a employment. These are not a stable, secure, salarized careers that can support a middle class family. They are a short term survival hustle counted as a job to prevent the official unemployment numbers from reflecting the true crisis of educated youth. So, how do we break out this structural matrix? We need a radical shift on the both macro policy level and a micro individual level. First, on the macro level, we must consider a structural economic blueprint long advocated by a thinkers like Dr. Subramaniam Swamy, the complete abolition of a personal income tax. Let's stress the pure economic flow of this decision. When you eliminate a personal income tax, you stop punishing a citizen for earning a money instantly. The immense pressure to hide the wealth is undocumented cash, undervalued real estate, or a illegally physical gold disappears. That capital stays legally inside a formal banking channel that create a massive surge in a bank liquidity because the bank are flooded with a legal long-term household saving. They can comfortably offer a high deposit interest while simultaneously handing out a massive low interest capital loans straight to our domestic manufacturers. The government does not lose the revenue, it simply shifts its collection point. As a citizen spend their untaxed disposable income across a diverse economy, the state recover its money downstream through the robust GST and transaction taxes on a high volume manufacturing, sales and services. This is the accumulation engine that fueled the early rise of the China manufacturing model, routing a high household saving through the state banks straight into a low cost industrial production. But you cannot wait for the macro policy to change. You must act as a micro level to secure your own survival before the system shifts. The service sector of India is sitting on the edges of a massive structural disruption. Generative AI is no longer just a tool for a software engineers, it is actively absorbing traditional service role across a customer support, operational supports, content creation, and the administrative role also. My direct advice to you on this Sunday afternoon, do not wait for the crash. Invest in a premium subscription from the AI for yourself right now. Stop using them for entertainment. Use them to dissect, refine, and master 3 to 4 distinct specialized skills. Use this tool to automate your background processes and monetize all 4 of those skills simultaneously across a global market. By diversifying into a multiple independent income stream powered by advanced technology, you build your own private, unaccessible financial safety net before the traditional job market experience its final consolidation. The system will continue to run its number, but your survival depends entirely on understanding a true math. Stay analytical, stay grounded, stay zen, stay peace. I'm the Zen Professor. Thank you.